Happy King's birthday to everybody. Here in New Zealand, it's an exciting day. It's a Monday and we're off from work. At least I hope that's the case because I'm not there. Just squeezing in a little workout and thinking about our groups here in New Zealand. Turns out there's 12 now, Parkinson's table tennis groups. We call ourselves PPPNZ. And it's pretty exciting. I think there's some 200 players, and we've got some really great coaches across the country assisting. We're all collectively driving this forward. And it's always a good time to remind us of some key things about safety. Now, there's a safety tips video already from a number of months ago. Please have a look at that. That's on this same YouTube channel. But just to brush up some of our knowledge, I thought I can do a quick repeat of some of those so that we all remember some really important tips. With table tennis, one of the real strengths for everybody really is to exercise our posture and our balance. And table tennis is just nicely developed and designed for that because we're standing in a way that assists our core posture. So, for example, when we're standing with table tennis, we like to have a wide stance like this. Now, that's really important. Any little micro movements we could do can be super helpful because those are allowing us to right ourselves and to practice those small micro movements of the muscles and the joints. In the event that we do begin to fall over, we might be better at sort of righting ourselves. At least that's theoretically the idea. Let me point that down to the feet just so we can see it. So with the feet, they're positioned about shoulder length apart. I would highly recommend a wide stance if you can. That's actually a really good thing for your balance and stability. It's also good for your game. When you're closer up to the table and getting ready to play, really important to try to put the weight on the front side of your feet, sort of the balls of your feet. You're not standing on your toes, but you are leaning slightly forward so that, you can get to those balls, but also, the table's right there. So the table's right there, and in fact, one of our drills is to tap the table before every play. That would remind ourselves, table's right there. If we begin to lose our balance in some way, really good tables there, we can stabilize ourselves. You don't want to be moving back. So to help yourself from moving back, a slight lean forward in your stance and reminder, the table is there. And even if you do that and develop that as sort of a ritual for when you're playing, tapping the table, it's a good ritual telling your attention system to ready itself as well. Now, in standard table tennis and in coaching, particularly in coaching at when we coach children, when people are already going into advanced elite levels as young players, we are constantly telling them as coaches to move their feet, move their feet, move their feet. And what we're encouraging them to do, is to always have little micro movements between shots so that you're always ready. And the reason for that, one of the reasons, it helps you, makes you fast, but also once you're in motion, it's easier to get in motion. So you don't want to, when we're learning in that way, we don't want to be just standing there. We want to be in motion. However, in some of our coaching, for example, in coaching with Parkinson's, sometimes it's important to adapt a little bit, even as a coach, and perhaps teach those sort of drills in a slightly different way. Of really seriously importance when we're coaching and when we're playing is that there is a slight more risk of falling over, and we really want to try to avoid that as much as possible. So adapting to different players' styles, sometimes it's important for the coach to be able to suggest different adaptations for this kind of postural and footwork and so forth. And so while a coach normally might not teach a young child to to stay here in the middle and reach. And in fact, oftentimes coaches say, don't reach. Sometimes it's actually a wise way to do things. So, as players, people can gauge their own ability a little bit. You're well aware if you're a high mobility player or if you're a lower mobility player. And it's just really, really important that we're not putting ourselves in a situation that sort of enhances the risk of fall. We want to really try to adapt and be proactive in the way we learn. So oftentimes, what we're trying to do as coaches is to adapt to the abilities of the players a little bit more. Okay? So in this case, what I would suggest, it's sometimes very wise to have your wide stance, but sort of closer to the middle of the table. If you then need to reach a little, you can reach a pretty far distance of the table. And sometimes, depending on the player, sometimes I encourage this method of footwork so that people can practice staying on their feet, yet still being able to play table tennis. So I just put that out there because adaptability comes not only with the player, but also with the coaches. Number one objective is to keep people safe and keep them playing and enjoying the game. And so it's often important that we all adapt to make that possible. Now, one thing we very much discourage is we do not want to cross our legs. No crossing the legs, particularly in groups, say, with older individuals, people who have some mobility or postural or control problems. Let's definitely not cross the legs. Some of the higher mobility people will take small jumps in each way and will make micro movements. And micro movements can come in many forms. If taking a jump might be slightly risky, the micro movement could be more like this, where I'm really just shuffling my feet a little bit. If you can see my feet there, I'm shuffling a little bit, but I'm not actually jumping. And that's sometimes a wise thing to do. So we can do a number of micro movements. And yeah, sometimes we might do a little bit more reaching. Reaching isn't just overall a bad thing to do. It's something that we as coaches, as well as players, need to sort of adapt to and adapt to styles. So keeping on our feet is super important. So I would suggest to anybody who's involved in the Parkinson's groups here in New Zealand and also across the world, talk to the coach who's helping your group and describe your needs and take into consideration your abilities and your mobilities and try to discuss some strategies that are adaptive for you, which might also be adaptive strategies for the coaches. Enjoy your playing.